So my name's Jeff Jacobs, and I am a pastoral leader within a secondary school in South London.
Could you tell us about the role of a pastoral leader?
So the main responsibilities of a pastoral leader is to deal with all the students' social, emotional, and mental well-being. I'd say it's the coming together of people in general. There's a saying my nan used to say, don't just take parents to raise a child, but a whole village. So I guess my analogy of what community means is a village coming together, all working for the same goal.
What do you think a community hero is?
I guess someone who is selfless and is trying to do all they can to better the people around them and themselves as well.
Who's your community hero and why?
I've probably got a few. One would probably be my grandma. She's not around anymore, but she's done quite a lot. Well, a lot, not quite. She's done a lot for the community in the New Cross and Deptford area in terms of putting on workshops and youth centres for a lot of the underprivileged children in the local area. So I'd say that she's probably my first hero in terms of, being someone who represents that community spirit.
What impact do you think youth centres have on the community?
Huge. Obviously, I was from that era where community centres or youth centres, if you like, was the norm. Most days after school, that's where you would head with your friends, play a bit of football, table tennis, whatever it may be. So again, it was nice because you would meet people from different parts of your area that you wouldn't necessarily know, and it just kind of just made you feel a bit more safer around your local area because there's always someone kind of watching out for you or someone that you knew from someone else. So I think the impact it had was positive, and it's just a shame there's not so many around currently. So lack of funding is obviously a sad thing. I guess sometimes I would say that there is potentially obviously funding available. I just think it's about making it a bit more accessible. I think that's the key word, really, accessible. If people generally know where to look, then it makes it a bit easier to get that funding. Not guaranteed, but I think it's more to do with the accessibility of it rather than the lack of it.
What do you know about the Windrush generation?
Quite a lot. Obviously, I'm first generation in this country, so my grandparents were part of that Windrush generation of coming over here from the West Indies.
No, let's explore that. Let's find out more about that. Tell us about your parents, tell us about their story.
So my paternal are from Jamaica. They come over from St. Thomas in I think it was 56, 57. And then my maternal side are from Barbados, and they come over a bit later, I think it's like just before the 60s. So in terms of, what I know when they've come over is about trying to create a new life for the younger generation, set up work, set up homes, set up community, I guess, because obviously a lot of the people coming from the islands, different islands, generally didn't know each other, but they were maybe put in areas like, Peckham, Brixton, West London. So all of a sudden, all these people didn't know each other. They kind of become, solid family or friends, if you like, and that's what I believe is the foundation of what community really represented back in those days.
And what do you think about the scandal that's going on nowadays with sending back people from the Windrush generation?
To be completely honest, it's not something that I've researched too much into. Obviously, it's disheartening to hear that people obviously have, given their lives to come over here and do in their mind what they thought was the right thing to do, to be kind of have your family over here for 50 plus years now to then be sent back home. I think it's disgusting.
What do you know about the Brixton uprising?
Was that the initial Brixton riots? Was that back in the 90s, wasn't it? 80s, sorry. I was still a baby around about them times. Obviously, growing up, you kind of knew what it represented. But yeah, that was kind of as much as I really kind of delved into it as such. But I know it was about just the uprising of people who are pretty much fed up of how they're being treated, whether it be from a kind of a race perspective, whether it be from an employment perspective, financial perspective. So, I'm always about power for the people and fighting for your causes.
What piece you got about the recent uprising a couple of years ago with
Mark Duggan.
what's your take on that?
think people are just tired, you know. Obviously, there's a lot of hurt, a lot of anger that goes with the whole subject of it, especially when you kind of look into how the murder come about. You know, him having a supposed weapon that, was it there, was it not there? I think it's just a case of where for so long we've just kind of almost been fed false information about what really happens. And then, you know, once you start getting to the root of the causes, it obviously starts to upset people. And I think sometimes, you know, we not that we lash out in the wrong way, but I think sometimes it needs to be a bit more kind of systematic in terms of trying to get your approach across rather than just causing riots, etc. I think there needs to be... That's me, I'm so sorry.
What impact do you think your job has on the community?
Huge, massive. I think the whole reason why I got into this in the first place was to try to make a change within my community and further afield. For a long time I was kind of stuck in I wouldn't say stuck in a job, but I did a job that was mainly just ruling for myself, nobody else, you know, just monetary gain. And it wasn't until, you know, 4 years ago when COVID happened that I started to realize, you know, what am I here for? What am I really doing? What's my legacy? What am I leaving? So 6 of us came together and we started a group which was just targeted at men. It's called Man in the Mirror, still doing it today. And it was just about trying to empower and encourage like men around us, you know, that we can talk. The old kind of saying is, you know, men don't talk, men don't open up. So we tried to kind of change that whole narrative by having this group that really kind of, you know, pushed that kind of message forward. There was one session that really kind of changed it for me, which was about identity. And I think that's something that a lot of the young people today struggle with. And I think that's you know, being a man, that's the core of what a man's all about. Do you know what I mean? Your identity. If you don't know where you come from, how do you know where you're going? Do you see what I'm saying? So it was about trying to really understand what drives me, what's my purpose. Fortunately, you know, working in a sales environment, I learned communication. I learned how to build a rapport. I learned how to be persuasive. I learned how to get my point across. So for me, kind of stepping from that job into working as a mentor or pastoral leader was a seamless transition. You know, I'm still trying to get across my message, but trying to change your mindset and change your perception of certain things. So I believe that, you know, I got into it late, but it was all for a reason. Do you know what I mean? It kind of led up to me being at this point now. So the decision of me kind of leaving a lucrative job, leaving a lifestyle and I will say this on camera, the government needs to do better in terms of paying people that work in education, paying people that work in NHS, paying people that work in the health services, because we do a lot, you know. But why we are the heroes is because we don't do it for monetary gain. It's not about the money, it's about trying to make a difference in our communities. So, you know, I don't want to brag and boast, but yeah, it was a difficult transition from a financial perspective of leaving a quite lucrative job in the city to kind of work within, you know, an impoverished area. But what I get paid from seeing my students down the street, Mr. Jacobs, look at me now, you know, I've got a scholarship, I'm doing a football trial, I'm doing this, that's payment enough. So I just want to kind of keep doing what I'm doing, keep learning, because, you know, things are always changing. I just want to keep trying to be that role model for our young people in the community, boys, girls, and even the older ones as well, because we all need a bit of support. It's funny, I talked to my daughters about it. Obviously, she doesn't go as much now, but when she was younger, I had to get her into all the youth clubs I possibly could. Just so she had a sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense of identity. Do you know what I mean? I keep on going back to that word identity because I think it's the most, you know, a lot of the children I work with, they don't know who they are. They don't know where they come from. So if you don't know who you are, where you're coming from, you're easily swayed into other things, such as knife crime, such as county lines, such as just doing things you shouldn't do. So, you know, the youth workers that work within these spaces, they're the teachers as well. Just because they don't work in a school, they're still teaching you about their life experiences. They're teaching about the mistakes that they made. They can kind of take on that role of not trying to replace a father, but, you know, a lot of children, let's be real, a lot of children, you know, is single parent homes. Do you see what I mean? My situation, I raised my 2 daughters on my own as a single father. Do you see what I mean? So the knowledge that I have to kind of give to people in my situation is priceless. Do you see what I mean? So I think just kind of moving them or closing them youth centres down, it's had a huge knock-on effect. Children are bored, they don't know what to do. They want to be running around, getting to things that they shouldn't be doing. And, you know, we've got to look at our own people as well, because, you know, most of the time it's the older kids that are kind of leading them down that path. Do you see what I mean? So the teaching starts from 1 right through to 35 and beyond. Do you know what I mean? It never stops. So I do think that it's important that we do try to bring that youth centre, that community back into our areas, because that's the only way we're going to be able to sort the problems out. So a message I'd like to give to the young people is just to is find your purpose. Purpose is everything, you know. Once you get your purpose, it gives you your passion, it gives you your perspective. You know, yes, it took me a long time to find my purpose. So I want to be in a position where I can give these young people the shortcut to get to that. Like a cheat code in Grand Theft Auto, you know, to get all the cars or to get all the ammo. I've got a cheat code to help you guys find your purpose a bit quicker. And if you can find it quicker than I found it, then sky's the limit. Sky's the limit.